All right. Wrapping up day 3 for us is Ryan Crane, founder and CEO of Tempo, calling in live from Chicago. He's an entrepreneur and advocate for cannabis with a background in CPG startups. Our relationship with Ryan began in 2019. In fact, I actually remember the moment I met him at BevNet Summer 2019, which was shortly after his TED Talk about therapeutic potential of CBD. He asked a question that was so technical, I wanted to back out of the conversation and let the scientists handle it, which they did. But he was creating Tempo, an infused sparkling beverage, and was a new client at the time. And our relationship was in the early stages, but it's grown since then and evolved. So I wanted Ryan to share his story with building a product with SōRSE and moving forward, being powered by SōRSE, if you will. So Ryan, I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here today, everyone. It's been really exciting to hear about everything that the SōRSE team has been working on lately. But now for this next segment, we're going to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to shift away from the technical content. And instead, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, my entrepreneurial journey, and how a partnership with SōRSE really helped me to take it to the next level. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ryan Crane, and I'm the founder of the Tempo beverage brand based out of Chicago. And there it is. So this is a photo of one of our CBD-infused sparkling teas. As you can see, we built this brand around the mindset of the urban professional that's creatively motivated in their life. And for us, since CBD is ultimately a wellness product, we really focus on using real natural ingredients in our recipes. So no artificial sweeteners or additives, and we really emphasize high quality ingredients. And our goal with this brand is to represent a guilt-free escape from that constant stress of the urban professional lifestyle. And as straightforward as all that might sound, the road to get to this point really wasn't such a straightforward path at all. So I'm going to take you back 4 years to October 2016, which was obviously much simpler times relative to today. And at that point in my life, I was sitting in a windowless office at an investment bank, scribbling notes down during my lunch break for this amazing cannabis beverage idea I had. See, at the time, I was working on food and beverage companies, so I understood the financial models and I understood the growth strategy, and I could answer all of the investor questions about these companies. I had 3 desktop monitors, I wore a suit and tie, and I was also fresh out of an MBA program at the University of Chicago. So what I'm getting at is I was pretty sure I had this whole beverage thing figured out. Now, fast forward a year and a half later to 2018. Now, at this point, my life is totally different. Now, I'm frantically running around my kitchen with vinyl gloves on, a pipette in one hand, a milligram scale in front of me, and a few different concoctions bubbling on the stove behind me. This is definitely not the image of someone that has anything figured out in life. And what was bubbling on the stove behind me were these blends of commercial grade CBD, tea, and a few other ingredients that I was mixing together to come up with what I hoped would be a cutting edge wellness shot, packed with all types of functional ingredients. And my thesis at the time was that the market was ready to move away from CBD as this silver bullet, like CBD for X, Y, and Z, and instead build around the cannabinoid to target more specific use cases. So for example, people like me that like to take CBD at work to help focus or get more productive, I wanted to add to that other functional ingredients that could serve the same benefit, things like green tea or ashwagandha or ginseng, and pair those together to create this more robust functional profile around the cannabinoid, which sounded great. But what I learned was that the execution of that was the difficult part. And I would try all sorts of recipe combinations to find something that really felt like it worked. And I sampled with friends and family, and I'd ask them questions like, oh, can you taste the lemon in that? Or does that taste like tea? Or is the aftertaste bitter? Well, what's the first thing you notice? I sampled these recipes with literally anyone that I could possibly convince to try it. And I even went as far as using my parents as taste testers at one point. But my mom just outright refused to try anything with CBD because, in her own words, it was marijuana and she's, and I quote, not a stoner. But but most other people were actually pretty good sports about it. What I found was that the trickiest part to this whole thing was the CBD supply. And we were using overseas and domestic sources of CBD because at the time, this was before the 2018 Farm Bill. So there was this logic that if the hemp was imported, then it was a legal part of the plant. Therefore, it was more legal to distribute. But we got our hands on as much as we could. We were working with powders, liquids, crystals, everything. They all had some sort of issue. Either the flavor was off, or there was this like sedimentation into the bottom, or they were oily or hard to measure out. Or when we tried to heat it for pasteurization, they get this like weird astringent bitter taste. And we probably went through 30 or more different suppliers of CBD to try to find something that worked. And despite all of this, we were actually somehow able to figure out a recipe that worked. And right there, and the crazy part is that once we got this wellness shot into the market, somehow it actually did really well. I think our go-to-market game plan was sound because it was just something that was different. And our customers really latched onto that. And as part of the branding strategy around it, in order to get the word out there, I would also speak at events. So at one point, I got invited to do a panel on culinary cannabis with a local food incubator in Chicago. And I was speaking alongside some really smart people. There was a director from Brightfield. There were some well-known cannabis chefs from LA. I'm pretty sure they got paid to be on the panel, but I definitely didn't get paid. My compensation was actually that I was given free registration to an IFT course on cannabis. But I was actually really excited about this course. And one of the reasons I was so excited was that the first presentation in the morning was titled Incorporating Cannabinoids into Beverages. It was perfect. And I actually have right here the schedule of events. You see that presentation, it was 8 a.m., it's first thing in the morning. I got up, I got ready, I showed up bright and early. I got a front row seat and I watch. And the presenter gets up and he's not really giving that usual pitch that we're also used to hearing about, oh, this product's 80 times more bioavailable, or it's going to cure MS, or all of that. Instead, he's talking about the science of emulsion and the science of scalping, which is something I hadn't even heard of before. And I had this moment of realization that I was thinking, okay, I guess I need to learn a little bit more. So I ran up to this guy after the presentation. It's like, love what you're doing. I would love to learn more about the science. I really want to make sure that I'm not missing anything in my own product. And looking back, I think I probably scared him a little bit. But for whatever reason, he was nice enough. He did give me his business card. It said, Scott Riefler at SōRSE. So I sent Scott a note and I followed up and I got connected to the team. And it was probably a week later that I got a note from two other members of the SōRSE team. It was Michael Flemons and Karen Seiler, who've got right here for you. They told me they're coming to Chicago, want to connect, want to learn more about what I'm doing. So I said, awesome, that's great, let's do it. What I didn't say to them was that this was actually kind of problematic for me. Because at this point, yeah, I was very interested in their product. But at the same time, I kind of felt like, well, I've put so much work into getting this other CBD extract to finally work in my product. The customers seem happy, the accounts are happy. And on top of that, I've just kicked off this round of fundraising and I really, really don't want to have to go back and change the whole story of my product. So realistically, I was bringing this very strong sunk cost fallacy to the table. But they come into Chicago and I take them to this popular lunch spot in downtown Chicago and we get to lunch and it's noisy and they're blasting music and it's hard to hear. And I'm sitting there thinking right off the bat, like, what have I done to these poor scientists? They just want to talk about emulsions. But fortunately, we're able to settle in. And then they start telling me about the product. And they're walking me through stability testing they're doing and how it's compatible with different types of beverage formats and sensory analysis and market feedback. And work they are doing on bioavailability testing and controls they're taking on dosing accuracy, even safety precautions they take on their supply. And then after all of that, Michael demonstrated the emulsions right there on the table. And I don't know where he must have pulled these out of like a magician pulling something out of a secret holster, but I don't even know where he pulled it out of. But he pulled them out and he put them in water on the table and he started telling me about them, about how they mix in. I got a chance to try them too. And I remember just being amazed by how open and transparent this whole conversation was. But still, I felt like I had to test him a little bit. So I started asking him questions. I say, okay, Michael, what's the bioavailability of that one? And he said, well, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. It's likely something in this range. Here's what makes it different from some of the other products on the market. It was just this really honest answer. So I said, okay, well, why do you think it's actually higher than some of those other ones? And if you've ever had a chance to speak with Michael, he's got a great way of using very simple analogies to just cut through all the heavy science. And I remember exactly what he told me. He said, well, because of the way we build the emulsion, it's like a jawbreaker. So it can survive the usual degradation through the digestive process, like enzymes in your mouth and your esophagus. I said, okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is it's a nanoemulsion. And he said, well, here's why that's an ambiguous term that probably carries a few more red flags than most people realize. And he was just the first person to answer these questions so directly. So I was just really impressed with this team. And I ran back to my office and I told them, guys, if we're going to do this right, we have to get on this level of technical sophistication. And I think that speaks to an important skill that probably every entrepreneur listening to this has. Something that you get very good at is quickly assessing whether the people you meet are just blowing smoke or the real deal. And what I realized is that more than any other group I had met, I could tell right off the bat that these people were the real deal. So we stayed in touch, and without asking, they just started reaching out to help me with other parts of my product. And it wasn't that usual like, oh, hey, we're circling back. I want to know if you've made a decision about your initial order quantity, or the thing like that we usually get. Instead, they started sharing ideas for my product that were totally unrelated to the emulsion, like packaging and pasteurization ideas and labeling advice. I got this one email from Michael at the time that I want to pop up on the screen. So this is a funny email because if you look at the subject line, tamper evident. Now look at the body, it's just a link. There is objectively nothing salesy in this email. And this was spawned from a comment I made about how I was having some difficulty with the seal on my product. But when I saw this, I felt like, these people are just entrepreneurs themselves. They get the entrepreneurial grind and they just want to help us through it. And remember at that time, of course, I was still raising capital, but as I continued down the road of that process, my perspective slowly started to shift. Because what I realized was that the ultimate sticking point for almost any investor was the CBD. It became clear that there's no way I was getting through to them unless they felt completely comfortable that that aspect of our business was totally under control. And they went deep into detail on it. I remember I had one group that was evaluating this investment like this was some sort of $1 billion M&A deal that was going to wind up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It was insane. I mean, they were connecting me with food scientists and chemists that I had to go through. This was on par with my M&A days and maybe even a little deeper than that. But fortunately, I had a secret weapon in my back pocket. I had the SōRSE team who helped walk me through the technical explanations to a lot of these questions that I received. And they didn't make me pay for every little conversation or piece of advice or response, except maybe a keynote speech every once in a while. They just genuinely seemed interested in helping me get through that process. And I came to realize that sunk cost fallacy that I had during our initial meeting really wasn't the issue at all. It was the opportunity cost that I needed to think about. The opportunity cost of choosing the wrong partner for the road ahead. because ultimately I realized that my ability to attract the type of investors that I needed to attract was contingent upon having a partner like this that I could trust, one that my investors could trust, and one that could help me to avoid the tripwires on the path ahead that really anyone working in consumable cannabinoids faces. So we did end up raising the capital we needed, and I did end up switching my product over to SōRSE, obviously, because at this point, my team and our investors had just been sold on the business opportunity using this ingredient. And we launched the new version of our wellness shots, and we got a great customer response because not only did it taste a lot better and it was more consistent, like bottle to bottle and batch to batch, but you didn't have that heavy sedimentation where you really had to shake it up before drinking it. And on top of that, I was now able to answer all of the technical questions about shelf life and stability and ingredients. And I quickly realized that there's another benefit to being a step ahead on these technical questions. And that was the ability to attract new accounts and distributors. Because more so than any of the customers, these were the people asking the technical questions. Because for them, choosing the wrong brand to put on the shelf could potentially be a huge long-term liability to their business. And because we had all the technical answers, we were frequently the first CBD product that many of these accounts were even comfortable carrying. So overall and over time, SōRSE just became more central to my business. So 6 months later, when I wanted to refresh my 12-ounce beverage line, I knew exactly where to turn. They were actually my first point of contact to assess what's feasible. And everyone here knows that when you're launching a new product line, the stakes just get a little bit higher. So they helped me to think through product development and even things like pasteurization. And what I really appreciated about those conversations is that they weren't just, trying to sell me on the top of the line or custom option or anything like that. They gave me honest feedback on what might work for my product and also what might not work too. So I actually did launch this line in early 2020. You can see it on the screen there. And it's just been a huge breakthrough for the Tempo brand. I think since we were one step ahead in building our product the right way, we've been able to meet the transparency requirements that just continue to emerge in this space. And honestly should be expected of really any new brand selling cannabinoid-infused products into the market. We can give the technical answers when needed. We've got a QR code on our cans that links directly back to the COA. And we've just been able to step outside from under this overarching shadow that is the term CBD. And we've been able to develop a brand and a product that's not just a carrier for CBD, but delivers functionality towards this higher level customer need. And we're building off that foundation too. We're exploring partnerships in and beyond CBD. We've worked with local musicians and local artists. We're actually working on a product partnership right now with another brand that I actually got connected to through SōRSE. And I think it's just the work we've done on the front end that has allowed us to take advantage of these new opportunities as they emerge. Now, at this point, I'll give you a break from having to hear about Tempo because I'd like to take a step back from my product and my brand to say something about the category as a whole. Because nowadays, like I'm sure everyone here, I spend a good amount of my time trying to help new brands avoid the many mistakes that I made in developing my product. And one of the first pieces of advice that I give to new brands entering this space is that you have to be very intentional about the people you align your business with. I think that one of the reasons we're able to retain the credibility we've built and also build upon it is because we are extremely careful about what we do, what we say, and who we affiliate with. As you all know, the product changes, the recipe changes, the packaging changes, the customers evolve. Our credibility is the one thing that we don't get to do over. And I get pitched a new CBD supplier like 4 or 5 times a week. Nano emulsions, water extractions, promotional prices, anything else you can think of. I've never even considered making the move to something else because we have what we need to grow. And I stuck with these guys, not because of any single factor, honestly, but because I genuinely believe that they're holding themselves to the same principles and standards that I want to hold my own brand to. And I firmly believe that I can get a straight answer from this team whenever I need it. Even today, I get involved in a lot of local cannabis advocacy and education initiatives in Illinois. And when I run into someone that's just trying to sort through all this category noise, I refer them back to SōRSE because I can trust that they're going to give them a straight answer too. Now, taking a step back from all of that, as we look ahead towards what's to come in this industry, it's the brands of today that will be the ones that shape the industry of tomorrow. And I think it's critical that all of us here work together to make sure we shape things the right way. On that note, I'd love to connect with anyone here. I'd love to talk about ways that we can collaborate to help build a better foundation for this industry, because I think it's really important for all of us as participants in this category to take ownership and responsibility for steering the industry in the right direction. And when we work together to facilitate a more consistent and credible message, both for our own customers and for the industry, that's something that we all benefit from in the long run. So thank you everyone for sticking around to listen to my story. I really appreciate it. And I just really look forward to hopefully having the chance to connect with all of you to talk about what we're looking to do in the space going forward. So thank you again, and thank you to the SōRSE team for having me here today.
Great, and thank you, Ryan. Obviously, please, everyone, take him up on the offer to help collaborate and, spread the good word regarding this industry and moving it forward. Education is the key to that. And, this industry, a lot of the charlatans are being pushed out, but we still need to correct a lot of what's out there that people are still confused on and get kind of stuck in the clutter, if you will. So definitely take Ryan up on that. If nothing else, you obviously know he's a great speaker. So another reason to connect with Ryan. But I do want to, thank everyone for coming today. Obviously, we have 2 more days of our SōRSE Summit. Tomorrow, we'll be focusing on technology, so emulsion customizations, trends and flavors, production, go-to-market strategy, and then a couple other initiatives that are taking and hopefully moving the industry forward that are powered by SōRSE. So thank you again. After you guys log off, you will get a survey. We would appreciate some feedback. That way we can make sure that we continue to produce high quality content. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, diana@sorsetech.com. Thank you very much for day 1, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you, guys.